Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. Have you ever experienced a moment during your spiritual journey, maybe after a deep insight or even a personal breakdown, when something inside you suddenly shifted? You started to see through the illusion, the patterns, the noise, and then came silence. At first, it felt powerful, maybe even uplifting, but slowly, that feeling began to fade, not in a dramatic way, but quietly, like your soul just turned the volume of life down and forgot to turn it back up. You stopped chasing things. You stopped caring, not in a careless or reckless way, but in that quiet, heavy, what's the point kind of way. And then the question started creeping in. Why do I feel so numb now that I finally see the truth? There's a strange paradox here. We often believe that spiritual awakening will fill us with passion and purpose. But for many people, especially those who are deep thinkers, empaths, or truth seekers, it can feel like the opposite. It leaves you feeling empty. I remember a friend of mine. She was incredibly wise, always reading spiritual books by Eckhart Tolle, Alan Watts, Krishnamurti, you name it. After going through a very dark period, she had a huge awakening. She told me she finally saw through the illusion of ego and the chase for success. But just 2 months later, she found herself lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to move. She said, "I used to cry because I felt like I wasn't achieving enough. Now I don't even care if I do anything at all. I thought awakening would make me feel alive. Not this." Even Carl Jung, the founder of analytical psychology, spoke about this fog that can follow awakening. He didn't use popular spiritual language, but he understood what happens when the unconscious becomes conscious. He said, "Enlightenment doesn't come by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." So here's a question for you. Have you ever felt more lost or numb after a moment of deep clarity or awakening? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. You're not alone. That all sounds beautiful until you truly understand what it means. Awakening isn't the end of the journey. It's actually the beginning of a kind of psychological death. It's the death of who you thought you were. Everything that once gave your life meaning, your goals, your career, your relationships, even your sense of time begins to fall apart. But here's the twist. Carl Jung would say your ego hasn't disappeared. It's just confused. It lost its old map, and now it doesn't know where to go. And when the ego doesn't have direction, your motivation fades. So if you're feeling stuck, numb, or unmotivated, it's not that you're lazy or depressed. You're simply in a space in between. You've woken up from your old identity, but you haven't fully stepped into your new one yet. And here's the fascinating and often misunderstood part. What you're feeling right now is not failure. It's not clinical depression or anxiety. It's something much deeper, something ancient, even sacred. Jung believed that our modern world avoids this phase at all costs. We rush to fix it, to label it, to escape it. But this sacred pause, this quiet in-between space is essential. It's a vital part of what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming your true, authentic self. The problem is, no one talks about this part. No one tells you that after awakening, you might feel more lost than ever before. But that's exactly what we're going to explore next. What's really happening in your psyche after awakening, and why this loss of motivation might actually be the greatest spiritual upgrade of your life, if you're willing to understand it. Before we continue, if you're someone who loves exploring deep ideas and seeing life from a higher perspective, be sure to subscribe to Fractal Wisdom. This channel is here to help make the invisible visible, and to support those of you navigating the strange and beautiful path of awakening. So, let me ask you, have you ever felt like your old life no longer fits, but you don't know what the new one looks like yet? Share your thoughts in the comments. You're not crazy, you're evolving. You're going through a deep psychological shift, one that most people don't even have a name for. Voice. It's not just a change in how you think, it's like your entire operating system is being rewritten. The goals you used to chase, the to-do lists, the 5-year plans, the hustle playlists, they just don't move you anymore. And it's not because you're failing, it's because the system that used to motivate you is falling apart. Carl Jung saw this long before it became a popular topic online. Let's break it down. For most of your life, Your drive came from your ego identity, the version of you that you thought you were. You wanted to succeed, to be seen, to be loved, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's part of being human. Jung called this version the persona, the mask we wear to function in society. But the awakening process begins to strip that mask away. Suddenly, you're not trying to impress anyone. You're not trying to win a game anymore. Because now, you can see the game, and that's when things start to feel strange. Without the mask, the old goals don't make sense anymore. They were designed for a version of you that no longer exists. It's like being a character who stepped off the stage and no longer knows their lines. That's where the feeling of being unmotivated comes in. You didn't lose your drive, you outgrew the fuel that was powering it. Jung believed we're not meant to serve the ego. We're meant to integrate it, connect it to something bigger. He called this process individuation, the transformation from a fragmented identity into a whole unified self, not the small self that craves praise or attention, but the deeper soul-level self that's connected to everything. And that deeper self doesn't care about status, approval, or even having all the answers. It's here to live in truth. So when awakening happens, your entire inner world starts to recalibrate. Have you ever felt like your inner world is shifting so fast that your outer world can't keep up? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what stage you're in. After awakening, something powerful begins to happen inside you. Your inner self starts rejecting anything that feels fake, forced, or driven by ego. That can include jobs, relationships, personal goals, even that vision board you carefully made back in 2020. This is why awakening can feel both incredibly freeing and deeply confusing at the same time. But Carl Jung gave us a warning here. If we stop here, we get stuck. Some people awaken and then fall into a trap called spiritual bypassing. They convince themselves that nothing matters, that everything is just an illusion. So they disconnect from life, emotionally float above it all, and slowly numb out. They mistake detachment for disengagement. But your true self wants something else. It wants to live through you. It doesn't want to escape the world. It wants to redefine your place in it. And to get there, you have to go through a strange and quiet middle phase that Jung described perfectly, but very few people recognize while they're in it. It's a phase that almost no one talks about. It's not glamorous, and it doesn't go viral. It doesn't look like meditating in Bali or posting deep quotes on Instagram. It looks more like this: sitting in silence, not knowing how to explain what's happening inside you, while the world rushes by around you. Jung would say, you're not lost, you're in between. You've stepped away from the ego, but you haven't fully stepped into the self. In this space you're in, it's not a failure. It's a rite of passage. But in today's busy, hyper-productive world, stillness gets misunderstood. People call it laziness. Pause gets mistaken for paralysis. So what happens? You start judging yourself. And that judgment blocks the very energy your soul is trying to return to you. Jung had a word for this sacred pause. He called it enantiodromia, the moment when something turns into its opposite. It's when your old drive fades, so your true direction can finally emerge. Have you ever felt like you're stuck in between two versions of yourself? No longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. Share your experience in the comments. You're not behind, you're transforming. When you awaken, something shifts deep within. It's like your inner pendulum swings from constant ego-driven striving to a deep soul-level stillness. You go from I must do everything to why do anything at all. And as strange as it feels, this swing is sacred. It's the process that brings your life back into balance. In myths and ancient wisdom, this is known as the hermit phase, the death before the rebirth. It's like the moment when a caterpillar turns into soup inside the cocoon. It's not a butterfly yet, but it's no longer a caterpillar either. It's just goo, and goo doesn't hustle. It doesn't make to-do lists or chase goals. It just dissolves. Naturally, this is where the ego starts to panic. It craves action, identity, control. But beneath the noise, your deeper self is whispering, let go, I step, building something real. This is also the part most modern spiritual teachings tend to skip. You'll hear things like just follow your joy or high vibes only. And while positive energy matters, Carl Jung would tell you that if you avoid the darkness, you miss the gold. So, Jung believed that integrating your shadow, the hidden, uncomfortable parts of yourself, is essential for becoming whole. It's not optional. It's not advanced work. It's the core curriculum of the human soul. This quiet emptiness you're feeling, it's not failure. It's actually a sacred space where the unconscious finally has room to rise. Your psyche knows what it's doing. It may pause your motivation, your energy, even your sense of purpose, just so you'll slow down enough to feel, witness, and reclaim the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. And here's the beautiful twist. When you stop resisting the void, something new begins to stir. Motivation returns, but it's softer now. It's not anxious or performative. It's not about chasing success. It feels ancient, familiar, like remembering who you are instead of trying to become someone else. Jung called this the emergence of the self, not just an idea, but a living inner compass, the real you. Have you started to feel a quieter, deeper kind of motivation rising within you? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. So you've walked through the void, you've sat in the silence, felt the stillness, and allowed yourself to pause, and now, something new is beginning to stir within you. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's more like a quiet, gentle pull, an inner nudge. Not a call to return to your old life, but an invitation to build something new. This is when the self begins to speak, not through thoughts or words, but through subtle feelings, resonance, gut instincts, synchronicities. Carl Jung called this way of living the symbolic life. He believed that once the ego surrenders and the unconscious is integrated, we become capable of living from a place far deeper than our surface personality. That's when life shifts. It stops being about survival, pressure, and performance, and begins to center around meaning. But here's the surprising part. It often feels beautifully ordinary. When the self leads, you don't hustle, you respond. You're no longer driven by the fear of missing out, but by what genuinely feels aligned. You stop chasing clarity, and instead you recognize it when it arrives. Living from the self doesn't mean you'll always feel motivated in the usual sense. You may still have days of confusion, tiredness, or even grief. That's all part of being human. But what disappears is the constant feeling of inner betrayal, that exhausting sense of dragging yourself through a life that no longer fits. Instead, you start to notice small but powerful shifts. You create even when no one's watching. You say no to things that look good on paper, but don't feel right in your heart. You follow curiosity instead of checking boxes. You choose peace over performance. This is your new fuel. It's not adrenaline, it's alignment. Jung called this living symbolically, not in fantasy, but with soul. It's when you begin to trust your inner world, your dreams, gut feelings, and synchronicities as meaningful guidance. Have you started noticing these quiet shifts, those small inner nudges guiding you towards something more true? If so, I'd love to hear what's been showing up for you. So what does all of this actually look like in real life? Sometimes, it starts with asking different questions. Instead of what should I do, try asking, what shit's quietly calling me? Instead of what shit's the plan. Ask, where is life nudging me? Instead of how can I prove myself? Ask, what feels honest? You stop trying to control or conquer life, and instead you begin to partner with it. This doesn't mean you have to let go of ambition. It means you transform it. Ambition becomes devotion to truth, to presence, to growth. And ironically, that kind of energy gets more done than ego ever could. But this time, it's sustainable. This time, it's soul-powered. This is the self's motivation, not to impress, but to express. And when that energy begins to lead, you'll find yourself wanting to create, to serve, to heal, to teach, to build, not because you think you should, but because your whole being says yes. So if you've been feeling like your spark has disappeared after awakening, maybe it's not gone. Maybe it's the old fire that burned out, so that a deeper flame could rise, one that doesn't flicker in the wind, one that lasts. Carl Jung never promised the path would be easy, but if you're here, listening to this, chances are, you're already on it. This isn't about trying to get back your old motivation. It's about discovering a new one, rooted in wholeness, not performance. This isn't the end of your awakening. It sets the beginning of your becoming. Have you noticed a shift from ego-driven pressure to soul-led peace in your life? I'd love to hear about it. Drop a comment below and share your experience. And if this message helped you name something you've been quietly navigating, make sure to subscribe to Beyond the Body. This space is all about exploring psychology, soul, and self-awareness in ways that actually make sense in real life. Because awakening isn't the end of your story. It's where the real story begins.